but I know all of these folks are very knowledgeable and happy to share what they know. So I'm going to let Heather get started, and we'll let you just take it away, Heather.
All right, give me 1 second. I will start sharing my presentation. Just 1 second. All right, can you see that?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, great, and you can hear me, fantastic. So good morning or almost afternoon. My name is Heather Vanatter. I'm the Manager of Economic and Business Development for AEP, and my service territory is Appalachian Power specifically. So I cover the West Virginia portion of what makes up Appalachian Power. And so I'm just, thank you, Jamie, and thank you everyone for having me. There's a lot of different things that we can talk about, but with it being Earth Day, I'm gonna cover a few things that might be pertinent to cleaner energy and what we're doing. So really, in a sense, we just want to make sure that you're aware that you have a proven partner with AEP and Appalachian Power. And so I hope after these slides and additional information, we're going to be able to connect in ways that we can support one another. But I would be a little bit remiss if I didn't talk about the Economic and Business Development Unit. I am part of a core team out of Columbus. AEP covers 11 states, and we have a specific economic and business development team out of corporate, and then there's economic development managers are in each state. So there's me and another person in Virginia that kind of covers Appalachian Power territory. And collectively as a whole, we focus on 3 areas, and that's product, people, and prospect development. And I'm not going to go over all of this in detail, but really what that means, our role is to focus on product development, which is around sites, whether that is an industrial park or a site that's been identified that needs to be assessed. We do have our own quality sites programs. These are not specifically owned by AEP or Appalachian Power, but what that means is that they have had a third-party consultant group come in, do the assessment on it, and validate whether it's ready for industry. And then with people development, we focus a lot on webinars, and we offer scholarships for national trainings for our practitioners. And that could be our, like Jackson County Development Authority or Huntington Area Development Council. And just yesterday, we hosted a webinar with Walmart. We met with Scott Gucci. He is the Senior Director of U.S. Manufacturing and Sourcing. And the whole initiative yesterday was to talk a little bit about the reshoring or the supply chain initiative. And so we offer those webinars for our partners so they can help keep up with industry trends, because if they're not informed, then we're not giving them all the tools. And then prospect development, we spend a fair amount of time reaching out to site consultants, as well as companies that are poised for growth, especially that may be a good fit for West Virginia and Virginia. And so we do market domestic and foreign direct investment. A lot of our inquiries are foreign investment, and so we just kind of cultivate those relationships. And we do all this by providing research and GIS services. So enough about me and the area that is kind of my bailiwick, and I'm just going to jump right into the 3 strategic support areas that I think might be relevant for today's discussion, especially with Earth Day. So, we don't just supply power, we also try to provide solutions. And that is kind of wrapped up in electrification, ABD, or our associated business development, and renewable energy. And I just chose these 3. I thought they were a good fit for the audience today. And I'm not gonna, this is all very high level, because at the end of the day, I want to get that conversation started. A lot of these, if you were to ask me a specific question of what your rate might be, the answer is really going to be, it depends. And so I don't want to just continue the conversation on it depends. So I am going to focus a little bit on electric forklifts, because I think that's a pretty basic common thing that we can wrap our minds around. But under electrification, there's electric vehicles and there's the electric fleets. And many may not realize that it's not just the your sales force going out and their identified electric cars going out to sales. It's much more than that. So I've listed some of these ways that around electrification, including the infrared curing and natural gas pipeline compressors. And then our ABD, or Associated Business Development, this is kind of that customer support that we offer. And it's not necessarily, it is a product in itself, but it's more of a relationship and an agreement and a way we can support. And that's from that distribution transmission. And there's leasing and training, and even bucket truck testing, which quite frankly, I wasn't aware of until like I was kind of like, hey, that's really nice that we offer that. And then there's the renewable energy. I know this is kind of the elephant in the room, talking about the renewable energy. For this, I will talk a little bit about the AEP sustainability goals, and then I'll narrow it down to West Virginia specifically and talk about House Bill 4562 and cover at a high level what that bill can and cannot do. And then we're going to talk a little bit about green pricing. But first, why electrify? And honestly, it's the demands to reduce carbon emissions while lowering cost. So these are being driven by our largest customers. And there is an aggressive switch from using burning coal and gas and oil to electricity. Not to mention the manufacturing processes are changing. Technology is changing, and it's allowing us to get in this field quickly. And for a lot, it's the cost savings. So there's evidence in these 4 trends. Obviously, we have the environmental concerns. That's a pretty obvious one. But with solar and wind renew generation, that as we grow in solar, as we grow in wind, it takes the pressure off of what we were producing by our coal-fired power plants. So just being able to grow in one area kind of takes the weight off of the other. And then most importantly, it's the efficiency and cost. With fleets, it's also on-road buses. You think about your municipalities. Do they have buses, garbage trucks, emergency response vehicles? And actually, even Polaris, I don't know if any of you have an ATV or UTV or spend time on Hatfield McCoy Trail System or anything, but Polaris is rolling out their first electric side-by-side later this year. So even our toys, for a better example, things that we enjoy, and we have a side-by-side, but it's not electric, but even those are going to electric. So we're definitely seeing it. And then there's commercial and industrial equipment, from space heating and refrigeration to cooking, petroleum refining, and high temperature processing for chemicals, glass, and steel making. But also data requirements. So it's no surprise last year when everybody went home and was grounded or had to work from home, we kind of changed our habits. Thanks to these, we were able to start shopping online. We ordered our groceries. We maybe put in a delivery to pick up dinner versus eating at home or eating at the restaurant. And because of that switch in our behaviors, it kind of increased the demand for these data centers to be able to keep track of all that. It is an information share. So with data requirements, there's different tiers of data centers, 1 through 4. So you think of 1 being a smaller, maybe a municipality-owned data center, all the way up to a Facebook or Amazon, which are, probably get more attention, but there's definitely a difference. So just the overall requirements that with people's behavior, that's why we're seeing the transition. And these data centers require a lot of power. And a lot of them they have those sustainability goals. So I talk about the technologies. I'm really just going to focus on forklifts, for example. It's too much to go into all the different technologies out there, from electric cars and refrigerated trucks. But for the sake of this conversation, electric forklifts save about 40% on maintenance cost, and 60% of all forklifts are now electric. Saves up to 80% on the fuel cost, and they're capable for indoors and outdoors. And I like this little graphic. To me, it kind of puts things to scale, literally. So the lift capacities are up to 80,000 pounds, or 13 elephants, in case you measure in elephants. So these forklifts that are going electric are just as capable as what may be on your floor today. So I'm going to kind of direct you to the resource calculator, and it's down here under this picture. It is the energyconversionhub.com. It is, that website has these calculators, and it's free to use. So I encourage you to go in and play with the numbers, put your input in there and let it calculate. It's one thing to talk about and promote electrification, but it's a whole nother scenario to say, hey, look, why don't you try it out and see what your cost savings would be? And that's why we have these tools such as the Energy Conversion Hub. So this is just a screenshot of what you would look like, if what you would find if you went on the calculators and you just put your information in, hours per day, hours per week, and you can just play around with those numbers. So maybe you're thinking about adding 3 or 4 more forklifts. Then just put that in there. So like I said, and also on this Energy Conversion Hub, there are articles, blogs, some fact sheets, case studies around what other companies have done. So if there's any question in your mind about whether or not you should electrify, then I would encourage you to go there and do a little bit more research. And we can always have that deeper conversation, but this is just a really good resource. And I go to it as I'm talking with companies and what we offer really as a package. So going away from our technologies and kind of that product of what you can use with maybe within your facilities, there's also another customer service component that we have, and that is our associated business development. So really, we provide design, procurement, and construction services for customers who choose to invest in high voltage and transmission equipment located on their properties within our service areas. So in short, whatever we can do for ourselves, we can also do for our customers. So some of those examples and products and services include those overhead transformers, voltage regulators, pad mount transformers, and there's a long list, but I just included a few today, just to kind of get your mind thinking of which ways we can support. So what about those customers that take that transmissions delivery? Well, we offer that complete substation, the transmission towers, bus work, relaying, lighting. These jobs are much more complex and require the assistance of transmission field services. And so one of the great services we can provide is the maintenance to customer stations equipment. So really the benefits with the ABD is savings. So when customers use and maintain their own equipment, there are 7.5 to 20% annual average savings. And this varies by jurisdiction. But really, we offer that one-stop shop. And sorry, I'm looking away because I have my notes. We have that one-stop shop for high voltage delivery, but we also have access to AEP supply chain parts and equipment. And really kind of lastly, what I think would be relevant is the emergency service restoration. So I'm going to imagine that maybe you have a company that has just-in-time services for a client. And if something happens and your plant goes down and your equipment stops, and you've got to get that back up and running with through the, maybe it was a transfer that went down. By having that ABD, that associated business development there for you, then that allows us to come in and it might speed up the process, make things a little bit smoother. So that's just another way that we can help in that regard. So we're fortunate to have a lighting expert on our staff, and they've got a wealth of knowledge to lighting lighting projects. So APCO can provide everything from parking lot lights to the stadium lights and really just about anything in between. And so we're kind of shifting because solar is that conversation that everybody loves to have. So solar installations are expected to become more and more, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But there's ways that we can kind of jump in and kind of offer that opportunity to install those poles, the wires, the other equipment necessary to create that backbone. So these are just all under that ABD. And so really, in short, if you're responsible for the operation and maintenance of transformers and other high voltage equipment in your organization, equipment your organization owns or leases on site, at some point you will need access to emergency power replacement equipment and specialists. Our technicians will do whatever is required to locate and coordinate all available resources to make repairs and get your operations moving again. That is basically what ABD is made up of. So going to switch into renewable energies. And I kind of save this for last because it tends to stir up a lot more conversations. But really at the sustainability goals at AEP, and then focus down into West Virginia, and then talk a little bit about our green pricing. And that's really, I'm just going to wrap the rest of this presentation up with that. So last month, AEP conducted a climate impact analysis. And I pulled this quote from that impact analysis from Nick Akins, our chairman, president, and chief executive officer. He said, "We're committed to making the energy we provide as clean as possible, as fast as we can, all without compromising reliability, affordability, or the security of the electric power system." And I pulled this out because I felt like that statement alone kind of sums up our entire process that we're trying to go through to transition. So there's the path to 2050. And so it's what does a clean energy look like? And it's complex. It really is. There's a lot of components to what goes into making a clean energy economy. And so for AEP standards, we plan for 80% reduction by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2050. And so in order to do that, there's a lot of things that goes into that study. So we have a path to 2050, and there's that transition analysis, the technology component, and risk and opportunities. So that analysis is really going to say, let's take a step back, let's see what we have to work with. What are some of the ways that we can reduce those emissions? What technologies can we apply? What does that look like? How long could we implement it? Or how quickly can we implement it? And then what are the risks and opportunities? It's one thing, it's no secret that West Virginia has coal-fired power plants. But if you think about as we look at maybe retiring some of those coal-fired power plants, that's going to provide a different opportunity. And I really think it depends on how you look at it. What side of the fence are you on? So if you're on the fence that's forward thinking and you're looking at an industrial site that has the infrastructure there that could house a new company, a new manufacturing facility, maybe a supply chain that's going to support one of our own, then those are things that we can work with. So, but that doesn't come without risk and opportunities. And that's kind of where we have to weigh from an economic development standpoint, we have to weigh that. And then all of that really just kind of proves that pathway of just transition, getting away from those emissions. So that's from the AEP corporate side. That's very high level. I'll be the first to admit I have not read the full almost 100-page document, but in sense, you can see the path forward. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the renewable energy for West Virginia. West Virginia House Bill 4562 is there to encourage the development of renewable energy sources. Many of you may be working with a business retention expansion rep out of the West Virginia Development Office, or maybe you've worked with a marketing and attraction rep in the past. And it's no secret that we were losing projects as a state because there was not the renewable conversation at the table. It just wasn't an option, so therefore we were not an option. So businesses considering where to locate often require that portion of the state's electricity. And I will say that in the past month or so, I've had 4 or 5 requests for information for prospects, and almost all of them have had a renewable energy question on there. And so it just kind of makes me a little bit more aware of what companies are looking for as they look to locate and expand in our territory. So in short, here's what the bill does and does not do. And I know that this is a lot of content on one slide, but more than 80% of Fortune 500 companies have sustainability goals. And more than 200 companies have pledged to go 100% renewable. So for these reasons, that's why we're working with the West Virginia Development Office with the support for this bill and to get this going. It just puts us at the table. The bill allows for AEP, Appalachian Power, First Energy, Mon Power to build up to 50 megawatt increments. And this new generation must be built on brownfields, abandoned mine sites, or utility property available. So what that means is if you're a company and you really want to have or incorporate or check that box for those sustainability goals, that means that this solar array could be housed at another location, but you can still tap into those resources and it still checks that box for renewable. Now, what this bill does not do is this is not going to displace our coal-fired generation. Coal-fired generation still accounts for 90% generation in West Virginia. The capacity factor of solar is about 22%, meaning that customers will still need electricity generated from other sources about 78% of the time. So it's not saying that we are just replacing what we have, but it's definitely changing the landscape a little bit and just offering more renewables and checking those boxes for the sustainability. So this is kind of in the works right now. So I'm just, like I said, I just wanted to share that from a West Virginia standpoint. So let's say that you're interested in doing that, tapping into that green pricing. Well, we do offer RECs, or renewable energy certificates. So really, this is just legal representation of renewable energy generated, which then may be sold to a buyer, such as an individual or organization. This way, buyers are able to help supporting organizations that generate renewable energy. In short, this allows you to take advantage of the renewables without having to have that solar array right next door or installed directly to your facilities. And I'm not going to come out and say that I'm an expert in any of these calculations, because I'm not. We do have at the bottom of the screen, I do have a number. So if there is if you want to dig into this deeper or see what that looks like for you and your company, then I do encourage you to call the number. I did provide on the left-hand side of solar, wind, and hydro, and there's just some pricing, and that's just what you would be looking at. And there's formulas, and that's above my pay grade. That's something that I'm not great at doing, but I do want to share some examples. There's the monthly usage match, and then a specific amount. So I just encourage you, really, I just put this up here because if you are interested, we really just want to have that conversation. Let's get the conversation going, and let's match you up with somebody who would be able to answer your specific questions around the green pricing or RECs. So that's really what I have to offer in terms of the pricing. So I know that was probably quick and a very high level overview, but here is my contact information. My role is really to kind of be your liaison in between your company's needs and our resources at AEP and Appalachian Power. So feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call, and we'll just get the conversation started. We want to be your partner. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Heather. That was great. I learned a lot on that, and I started to calculate my weight in elephants and decided I would not like to find out how many elephants I weigh. So, oh, let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna let Dr. Gopala speak now. He's with the WVU Industrial Assessment Center. So take it away, Dr. Gopala. All right, we can't hear you, but screen looked good.
Okay, are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you for having me, Jamie. Appreciate it. I am the director of the Industrial Assessment Center at West Virginia University, and I have been the director, one of the directors, for a long time. And what we do is funded by various federal organizations and by the West Virginia Office of Energy. So let me talk a little bit about that. Our mission is to provide no-cost energy efficiency. Basically, the words no cost is important. And we look at energy efficiency, energy management, waste and water minimization, as well as emissions reduction. We also look at manufacturing, productivity improvement, and cybersecurity as well. Since we are part of WVU and I'm a full professor, I need to do research also. So there are a lot of research that I do that have been inspired by these assessments and energy efficiency measures. I'm assisted by Dr. Ashish Nimbate, who is the assistant director of the center, and we have a program that is well funded by West Virginia Office of Energy, the DOE, EPA, USDA, and other sources. These are the industrial assessment centers that exist from 2017 to 21. This is a 5-year cycle. We have been renewing it for the last 30 years. And we just submitted the renewal proposal this morning for the next 5 years. And I would like to thank most of you on the call who have submitted support letters for that proposal. So in Morgantown, we have our territory. And as you can see, there are other centers around the nation, and they have their territory of operation. And we get funding from various sources. 28 centers are there across the US, and we are just beginning our 30th year. We have conducted a lot of assessments. I am at an assessment today as we speak. So we also do work for commercial, institutional, and government buildings, and try to save energy for them as well, and publish our research in peer-reviewed journals. And students graduate. Students are the best part of this whole exercise. They get extremely good jobs after graduation. So the qualifying criteria for an IAC assessment funded by the Department of Energy would be a facility that's 3 to 4 hour drive from Morgantown in surrounding states, as well as West Virginia, and manufacturing and water treatment facilities mostly. And we can also do some facilities that are non-manufacturing. The annual energy cost must be less than 2.5 million and greater than 100,000, and sales less than 100 million and less than 500 employees. But there are exceptions. Those plants in West Virginia that do not meet this criteria, we can still do those assessments after getting permission from Karen from the West Virginia Office of Energy. And Karen and her office has been a great supporter, and before her, Jeff Herhold. For so many years, we have been having consistent funding through the West Virginia Office of Energy. The E3, economy and energy and environment, we try to do that activity, partnering with the MEP and industrial extension. I've been very fortunate to have the relationships I have with West Virginia MEP and industrial extension. And Stacy and others, David, Jamie have been great supporters for us. And before Stacy, I had support from the other directors as well. And we we will definitely continue to work with that group. USDA and EPA grants for energy assessments are available, and they have a slightly different objectives, but they can still be utilized, and people can apply for the USDA REAP grant after an assessment from us. This is how an energy assessment works. I know it's no longer called an energy assessment because we look at energy, water, waste, smart manufacturing, and cybersecurity. So everything starts with energy though. And what we do is we look at the technology, we assess the technology, whether it be electricity or natural gas. And we do a lot of extensive measurements, data logging. And then we try to look at what measures can be implemented for low payback on investment. And also we review those after implementation for measurement and verification purposes. These are all the systems we look at: electrical, lighting, compressors, motors, all on the electrical side. And then of course, steam, process heating on the gas side, as well as propane and other fuels, as well as HVAC and the building itself. The assessment is a very detailed process. It has a pre-assessment phase, assessment phase, and a post-assessment phase. And we recruit the client, and MEP, Industrial Extension, has been very kind to introduce many clients to us over the years. And of course, the whole process is of no cost to you, to the clients. We look at the utility bills. We have a discussion, as I did this morning here in Technimark, with the plant people, and we just came back from the tour of the plant. They make the shampoo bottle caps here and other kinds of plastic injection molded products. Right now, the students are in the same room trying to initialize the data loggers and other instruments to start collecting the data before we go for lunch. And then in the evening, we would have a wrap-up discussion. And in this case, the company today requested extensive data collection. So we're going to leave the data loggers on for about 3-4 days. And then Lorraine here will ship it back to us. So after we do the report is very detailed with all the formulae, and we do the implementation and follow up after that. We also look into ISO 50001 and superior energy performance. If any of our clients need it, we can handhold them through that process of energy management. In West Virginia, we have done many energy assessments, and these are some of the assessments that we can talk about, which do not have a non-disclosure agreement. This is Steel of West Virginia. We've been there a few times over the years, and very energy intensive.
I think we've lost you, Gopala. Mark, are you able to hear Dr. Gopala?
No, I don't hear him either.
Okay. Okay. Well, looks like we're having some technical difficulties. I know he was out on the road doing this from a client site. So let's go ahead and move on to Karen then, and we'll pick back up with Gopala if things get back online for him. And Karen, I'm going to apologize. I practiced your name before we started, and I still managed to botch it up. So Karen Lesure, right?
Close enough, leisure.
Okay, take it away, Karen.
All right, let's see if I can do this. Oops, not that one. All righty, looks like I'm having some technical difficulties as well. Give me 1 second here. Okay.
Looks great.
Awesome. Okay. As Jamie mentioned, I work for the West Virginia Office of Energy. We are primarily responsible for the formulation and implementation of energy initiatives designed to advance resource development opportunities and provide energy services throughout the state. We support and promote a variety of energy-related projects around the state. We provide lots of education, training, and technical assistance opportunities, and host workshops, conferences, webinars, seminars, a lot of different outreach opportunities. And we collaborate with local governments, organizations, agencies, a lot of educational institutions, higher ed, the K-12, CTCs. Primarily, our funding comes from the U.S. Department of Energy State Energy Program. The Office of Energy is the only state entity legally eligible to implement SEP-funded programs. These funds are prohibited from privatization. Our priority areas are mainly buildings and industry, educational and workforce opportunities for training, electric power and renewable energy, policy planning and energy security, transportation, and energy resiliency and emergency response. So our office is divided up. There are 3 of us that work on our projects. Tiffany is fossil and transportation. I am energy efficiency and resiliency, and then Kelly is our person that does transportation and renewables primarily. For our energy efficiency programs, we partner with a slew of different entities. For residential, we provide a lot of training opportunities to builders and other industry professionals. We train them to understand the energy code, current energy code established for West Virginia in residential is the IECC 2009, but even though that is the adopted code for West Virginia, a lot of our contractors have to compete with contractors that are coming in from out of state that know how to build to the 2015 or the 2018 IECC. So our contractors need to understand so that they compete with these builders coming in from out of state. We also offer training for ResNet's home energy rating system, which is HERS, and also BPI, which is Building Performance Institute's building analysts. And there's a new training that I'm working with several of the CTCs here in the state, as well as a couple of community colleges within in Pennsylvania to bring in certified building operator, which is a credential for facility managers in building management and building automation. So the idea is to bring in a lot of these credentials that are stackable, so that folks can have certifications and credentials in several different areas to provide, so that they have more services to provide their clients. Also on the commercial side, we've done, in partnership with Dr. Gopala's group, also Projects with Industry, which is the undergraduate engineering program at WVU, as well as the industrial extension at WVU, which used to be the MEP. We've provided projects for a slew of organizations, from manufacturers, large commercial. We've done some utility scale projects. Ambit Power Station, First Energy had us come in and do a wind stack study on a couple of stacks that they had that had been abandoned, that they were looking at creating wind tunnels to create offset their parasitic energy. But these two projects with WVU have provided real world training for over 500 students in the last 20 years. They get 60 to 80 hours of work in the field, credit hours towards their classes, and they've provided technical assistance to over 400 energy projects. And if this next slide actually is a list of all of the companies that have benefited from these projects. And most of them, it's not just one project. There's a lot of these entities that have come back for 2 and 3 projects. So we visited them several times. So when you see the list, it's interesting how many entities in the state that these 2 projects have touched. In 2018, the West Virginia Office of Energy was awarded a $300,000 competitive SEP grant award to do benchmarking in the state. We're looking at inventorying and benchmarking all of public buildings, starting with K-12 schools. And this activity was to develop a roadmap for us to address the energy performance and the deferred maintenance on all of our buildings, but also to provide a draft legislation for a benchmarking and disclosure policy, requiring an annual review of all of our buildings to be delivered to the 2022 legislative session. We're a little ahead of the game on that one, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. But our partners for this project was the West Virginia chapter of ASHRAE, which is the heating and cooling and refrigeration engineers, Marshall, WVU, School Building Authority, Department of Education. It's been hugely successful. We've actually, we've completed 37 counties. We're about 87 or 80% complete on all of these projects. We've benchmarked over 23 million square feet of space. Cabell County was the first to complete EUI and Energy Star benchmarking ratings for all of their buildings. Barber County had 4 first-time schools actually achieve Energy Star certification. Berkeley County has had the most Energy Star certified schools, with 22 out of their 33 buildings or schools have been Energy Star certified. And Kanawha County actually used the information that we provided them, not only with their benchmarking, but also some assistance with some performance contracting. And they, their potential annual savings identified was 1.8 million for just that county alone. So, well, this is just a discussion on exactly what we learned, that, if you can use your EUI numbers, which is your energy use numbers for your company, your building, or even your home to actually drive your utilities expenses. You can actually have a goal EUI, and if you hit that, you know exactly what you'll be within a ballpark of what your utility bills will be. This project has actually evolved. Early information from this project informed a committee study resolution from the House to see how state agencies could better manage the amount of taxpayer money that was spent on utilities. That information from that study actually informed the effort this year, which was House Bill 2667, Energy Savings in Public Buildings. This bill was passed almost unanimously by both the House and the Senate. There was only 3 no votes on the House side, and it was passed unanimously in the Senate. This bill sets an energy use reduction goal of 25% in all state buildings by 2030. This is based on 2018 baseline data. This requires an inventory and benchmark of all of the buildings that are administered by Department of Administration. It requires us to do a utility audit on all of our utility accounts, not just electricity, but gas and water as well. And it establishes some guidelines and some requirements to lead a guaranteed energy savings performance contracting program. So, and all of this is creating a need for a trained workforce in energy efficiency. So we're looking at, I've written 3 grant proposals so far, and we're working with several of the CTCs to build out a training program that will be fed. The demand for a trained workforce is going to be fed by our addressing the deferred maintenance and the building upgrades on our state from our public buildings. So we'll use, as we retrofit those buildings, it's going to drive the demand for more, a larger workforce in energy efficiency. So the idea is to, provide training stipends and other opportunities to those workers who are displaced from the fossil fuel industry in the state, particularly the coal mines. So we do not do this alone. We have oodles of partners. We're creating new partnerships every day, and it's not just within the state. I look to our partners out, in our neighboring states to bring in expertise and resources. So we partner with regional energy efficiency organizations. We belong to 3 of those. So and both the Northeast, the Southeast, and the Midwest. So this allows us to bring resources and information from oodles of other states around us, and we can learn, learn from what they, have figured out, learn from their mistakes, take, from them, what worked for them, what didn't, and, just build on that. And our most recent partnership is with the Clean Energy Center at Pennsylvania College of Technology. This is a community and technical college in Pennsylvania that does their training center for Pennsylvania for certified building operator, certified energy auditors, and the building analysts and HERS raters. So we're partnering with them to help us bring a test center into West Virginia so we can train our energy efficiency workers here at home. We don't have to send them out of the state to get trained. So that's it in a nutshell. I am happy to answer questions, or if anyone wants more information on a training or any type of assistance that they need, just please let me know.
Thank you, Karen. That was fantastic. I loved that slide that showed all of the different companies that you guys have touched. That's it's an impressive list. So
and it's growing every day.
Fantastic. So Dr. Kapala's back with us. I know he's on site. He's probably got a small army of students who are waiting for him for lunch. So we'll let you kind of skip towards the end of your talk there so that we can let you feed those hungry folks.
Okay, I will start here.
Okay. Yeah, you're a little quiet, but yeah, that's good.
Okay, good. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So this is just the Steel of West Virginia recommendations. As I said before, I got internet connection being cut off. It's about 6.1 million kilowatt hours a year, 61,000 million BTUs of natural gas a year, and about close to $750,000 recommended savings. And if you look at the payback on investment on most of the recommendations, they are very good, less than 2 years. Quad Graphics in Martinsburg, again, had about 11 recommendations for a significant $500,000 recommended savings at very good payback on investment. So then this is an unusual assessment, Mountaineer Casino in New Cumberland. The casino buildings and other buildings over there also gave rise to a significant energy savings. And we also went back there and tried to see what we could do with the waste food in terms of generating biogas from that. That was a separate recommendation. Huntington Civic Arena was not a manufacturing facility, but we still did an energy assessment for looking at their building, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and other systems, working with Ken Means of mechanical engineering. And that turned out to be a really good assessment, but the payback on investment was not as good. Mostly for building recommendations, they are a little bit larger payback. The implementation we have seen over the years around 50%, and we tried to train the clients as well, teaching them how to fish instead of just giving the fish. So we look at the continuous improvement and encourage them to share that information with others in replications and spin-offs. And we look at productivity improvement. The rebates also help. And we look at the rebates that are offered in the particular utilities that are offering it, and the state rebates. And of course, the USDA REAP grants, that's a cash grant by USDA. And we are an authorized USDA assessor. And we are also an authorized boiler MACT or a MACT, maximum acceptable control technologies, EPA contact for developing energy efficiency for complying with the MACT regulations. So that's all I have, Jamie.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry we kind of rushed you through that, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. If anybody has questions, now would be a good time to put them in the chat. We got some great resources here, and I've had the pleasure of working with Dr. Gopala a couple of times and watching his team work, and it's a very thorough process. Great stuff. So here's a question. This kind of goes out to all of you. What do you think is the barrier for people to take advantage of your services? I mean, all of these are free services, or they're mostly free. Seems like everybody would want this. So do you have any insight into why everybody isn't knocking down your door?
Are you asking me?
Sure. That'd be great. Let's hear from you.
I think there is a lot of inertia sometimes to be able to generate some information. We need 12 months of gas bills and electricity bills for analysis, and then we need somebody at the site to help us make all the data connections, equipment, instrumentation, connections, and so on. So that could be, the time could be a barrier. Another one is non-disclosure. Some of them don't want to disclose information to us, and then it takes a long process for WVU to execute the NDAs. Okay.
Heather or Karen, anything you guys want to add to what you think stops people from reaching out to you?
I think for a lot of the opportunities that we have, a lot of times folks don't know, or even though we try to make sure that we're we take every opportunity to get information out. I think a lot of times folks don't realize exactly what's available. Another could be, it's like it kind of like I think there's a sense of complacency, or just like nothing's going to work, nothing ever changes, so why bother? So I think there's a little bit of that alone, but I think mostly it's not knowing exactly what's out there.
Yeah. And Heather, before you answer, I'll give this a more direct question, because Vitali, hey Vitali, said, where do we start? So I think we've already got some folks that are interested. So do you have any insight on where do you start? Do you just send you an email? How does that
send me an email. If it's something for Gopala, I can forward it to Gopala. If it's something that I need to start, or if it's something that I think Heather, I try to facilitate and convene as much as I can. That's one of the things that I actually do best, is getting folks that normally you would never put in the same box together. And interesting things pop out of the box when you do that.
Great. Heather, do you have anything to add to that?
To which one? I think we're
well, okay. So how do we start, and what do you think's the barrier to people taking advantage of what you got?
Well, really, I think to kind of answer one question with the other is the question is, where do you start? That might be the biggest answer to the barrier, especially around solar applications, where West Virginia is kind of newer and getting there. It's a little bit different if you were to go across the river in Ohio. One part of that is, so in West Virginia, we do have the House bill. There is initiatives, but it's not a clear cut. It's not a matter of do X and you get Y. So it really comes down to, what are you looking for, and let us help find that resource and what that looks like. Because in reality, if the operating company, for example, cannot support that, then I can go to our competitive affiliates within AEP. So there's solutions to be had. We just got to get the conversation started.
Okay. And I could imagine that for you, it's a little counterintuitive, because I associate you with, I pay you for your services, for the bill. I get an electric bill, I pay it. So why would you want to help me make that bill lower, right? I mean, I could see there being that being a little counterintuitive. But it is your goal, right?
Yeah, well, it's a reliability, and it's also about being a good corporate citizen and giving back. So.
Okay. So, oh, and Karen, you had mentioned earlier, we had a chance to talk a little before we got started that there might be some opportunities for people to get some training in how to do assessments, because Gopala is running around like crazy trying to get all these done.
Yeah, especially in the southern part of the state, we always have need, especially in small businesses. The more folks are learning about energy efficiency, I'm seeing more and more need for energy auditors and that sort of thing. And if I can get a group of folks that maybe work in HVAC or in some industry that they could take advantage of getting another training. We have the curriculum. I just have to put a class together and bring a trainer in. So if I get enough folks interested, then we can bring in a trainer and have a class.
Yeah, and I just got a question from Timothy Moore. He wanted to know if we're giving the contact information for Gopala. I'm to everybody who registered, I'm gonna send a recording of today's event, and I will put all of our panelists' contact information in that. So yes, you will get that. Do many residences or businesses sell their solar power electricity back to AEP? That's for you there, Heather.
Yeah, so there's, depending on how it's framework. So I'll just kind of frame it with, if somebody is generating power and they're selling back to the grid, then essentially they become a power generator. So they would need to go through the same regulatory stuff. Now, the way it works is if you have solar panels, then it kind of goes back on, kind of offset the cost of what you use, and then it goes back to it. So, and Jamie, you can share my information, and I can talk to Nancy a little bit more deeper and find out what she's wanting to, Nancy, what you're wanting to accomplish there. And I might have a better in-depth conversation with you.
Sure. Yeah, Nancy's there at Bob's Market, which we were talking about earlier, which is just a great, fun place to visit. So, yeah, we're running really tight on time. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. And thank you guys so much, Karen, Heather, Dr. Gopala, the fantastic stuff, great information, lots to work on here. And I will be sending this out to everybody real soon so that we can continue the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.